Reborn Dr. Concubine. Important note: for the continuity of this story, consider to support us on Patreon. com/Flockixy to access plus 200 advanced chapters and to support the daily update. Chapter 1. Die with Unclosed Eyes. In the 33rd year of Tianqi, during the coldest days of winter, a bitter wind howled. At the imperial city's state preceptor's residence, a mournful cry pierced the sky. Zhao Huyan, Su Yue, you're not human. In a dark, damp firewood shed, a disheveled and battered woman, her clothes in tatters, lunged forward with all her might. Her movements were too forceful, causing her slightly bulging abdomen to become more noticeable. But before she could reach the door, the iron chains binding her yanked her back, forcing her to stop. The chains clanked loudly as the woman, her collarbone pierced by the chains, ignored the pain and tried to move forward. At the doorway, a man in luxurious robes looked on with disgust. Beside him, a beautiful woman clung to his side. At their feet lay a lifeless body. Su Li stared at the maid who, just moments ago, had whispered, "Don't be afraid, miss, I'll save you." Now the maid was dead. Su Li's eyes burned with hatred as she glared at the couple. "Brother and sister is so scary." The delicate woman pressed herself closer to the man. The man wrapped his arm around her and comforted her. "Don't be afraid, Yue. She can't get to us." He then turned to Su Li and said coldly, "Su Li, hand over the military tally, and I'll make your death quick and painless." Su Li threw her head back and laughed. Her long hair fell away, revealing a long, hideous scar across her face. Despite the scar, her eyes were stunningly beautiful. "Zhao Huyan, you owe everything you have today to my Su family. To me, Su Li, what Tianqi's top strategist? Without me, Su Li, you're nothing." Zhao Huyan gritted his teeth. This was exactly why this woman had to die. He had risen from a penniless scholar to a trusted advisor of the emperor, and it was all thanks to this woman. But precisely because she was so cunning, she had to die. Now that the new emperor had ascended the throne, Zhao Huyan had achieved everything he wanted. It was time for this woman to step aside. "Sister, as women, we should always put our men first. Why be so strong-willed? Look where it's gotten you," Su Yue said, her words pleasing Zhao Huyan but enraging Su Li. Su Li rattled her chains, glaring at her once-beloved younger sister. "Su Yue, you're utterly heartless. He was your father too. How could you do this? You're worse than an animal." Su Yue covered her mouth and giggled. "Sister, it seems your maid told you everything. Your father and your maternal grandfather's family are already in the underworld. They died horribly, accused of treason. You didn't see it, but your grandfather's blood flowed like a river, staining the execution ground red. His head was even hung on the city gate as a warning. Tusk, tusk." Su Li's eyes turned bloodshot as she screamed, "Junhui, you tyrant, tyrant." Seeing Su Li's reaction, Su Yue grew even more excited. "Oh, and one more thing, sister. I might as well tell you the truth. Even though I called that man father for over a decade, he wasn't really my father. Besides, he never treated me like a daughter. His eyes were always on your dead mother and you, the little bastard." Su Li's eyes widened in disbelief. "You viper, what do you mean? Father always treated us equally. He never favored me over you. Father lived a clean, honorable life and you've tarnished his name. Are you even human?" Su Yue sneered. "Never favored you? Then why didn't he make my mother his official wife after your mother died? Why did I always have to live in your shadow as the legitimate daughter? He brought this upon himself, and it's all because of you. The new emperor has ascended, and with a new ruler comes new officials. Your father and grandfather's family had to go. It's all your fault." Su Li took a step back. Yes, it was her fault. She had ignored her father's warnings and stubbornly married into the impoverished Zhao family. She had strategized and schemed, helping her husband and aiding the new emperor's rise to power. But when the rabbits are dead, the hounds are cooked. When the birds are gone, the bow is put away. It was all because of her. Seeing the despair on Su Li's face, Zhao Huyan said impatiently, "Yue, why waste your breath on her? Every moment I spend looking at her makes me sick. Su Li's eyes nearly burst with rage. Not long ago, this man had held her in his arms, swearing undying love. Now he treated her like garbage. For him, she had defied her father for the first time. For him, she had begged her grandfather to join the sixth prince, Junhui's faction. And what had she gotten in return? All her efforts for him had been worth less than a pretty face. Zhao Huyan, I'm carrying your child. Aren't you afraid of divine retribution? Su Yue giggled. Sister, children are a dime a dozen. Brother and can have as many as he wants with me. That's no threat to him. Just hand over your grandfather's military tally and you can die with less suffering. Su Li clenched her teeth. When her grandfather had given her the military tally, he had repeatedly warned her never to hand it over to anyone. Never. I'd rather die than give you the tally. If the military tally fell into their hands, the common people would suffer the horrors of war. Zhao Huyan rubbed his temples. Forget it. If you won't hand it over, then don't. It's just one less thing to please the new emperor. You can take that tally to the underworld and join your grandfather's family. Su Yue's face lit up with joy. Brother, and you go ahead. After all, sister and I were once close. I'll see her off. Zhao Huyan nodded and left the courtyard. Once he was gone, Su Yue's sweet smile vanished. She turned to Su Li, her eyes filled with venom. Su Li, do you know what I hate most about you? It's your eyes. You're so ugly, yet you have such beautiful eyes. You don't deserve them. Yuki, go gouge out her eyes. The maid behind her hesitated, her head bowed, not daring to look at Su Li. Su Li stared at her. What? You don't want to? Do you still care for your former mistress? Su Yue said coldly. Yuki clenched her fists, then suddenly looked up at Su Li with newfound courage. Miss, I'm sorry. Su Li's hands were bound, her collarbone pierced. She couldn't fight back. She could only watch as her former maid approached. A scream echoed through the snowy night, accompanied by Su Yue's sweet laughter, creating an eerie scene. Su Li was on the verge of passing out from the pain, but her hatred kept her conscious. Heh, sister, now you look much more harmonious. Sister, I actually feel a little sorry for you. You were brilliant for half your life, but also foolish for the other half. Do you know why I want you dead? Because you're in my way just like your mother was in my mother's way. That's why my mother took her life. Su Li trembled. Her mother hadn't died from complications after a miscarriage. That was why she had devoted herself to studying medicine. As if Su Li hadn't suffered enough, Su Yue continued, Oh, and do you know how your cousin died? She was raped to death by soldiers. It's so funny. You always ignored her, but even in her final moments, she begged me to spare you. Isn't that hilarious? Cousin. Su Li could no longer hold back. She spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground, vomiting blood uncontrollably. Her body was soon drenched in blood. Zhao Huyan, Su Yue Junhui, I'll haunt you even in death. With that final cry, Su Li's strength left her. She fell to the ground, lifeless. Yuki trembled as she stepped forward to check Su Li's breathing. Madam, she's dead. Su Yue smiled sweetly and said gently, Throw her body to the dogs in the mass graves. Yuki shivered and nodded. Yes. She called in 2 servants from outside to drag the body away. The wind stopped and the snow ceased. Master, this seems to be the granddaughter of the old duke. The sound of a wheelchair rolling followed. A sigh was heard. Then Su Li felt a warmth envelop her. She could sense a heavy cloak being draped over her body. Cough, cough, what a pitiful soul, let's go. Master, your cold ailment. Su Li struggled to open her eyes. Through her blurred vision, she saw the back of a man in a wheelchair. In the snowy night, he looked especially pure. Junmo, I'm sorry. It was her scheme that had worsened this brilliant man's cold ailment, confining him to a wheelchair and stripping him of his chance to compete for the throne against Junhui. The late emperor had 4 sons. The crown prince had died of illness. The 3rd prince was a recluse. and the only threat to Jun Hui was the seventh prince, Jun Mo, who was both talented and beloved by the late emperor. So she had devised a poisonous plan. How ironic that in her final moments, the one who showed her kindness was him. Her fate was her own doing. Jun Mo, if there's a next life, I'll repay you. Su Li no longer had the strength to make a sound. With guilt toward her family and Jun Mo, and hatred for her enemies and herself, she died with her eyes wide open, unable to rest in peace. Chapter 2, Return of the Soul. Miss, why are you sitting by the window again? You've just recovered. You mustn't catch the wind. Sikin entered, closing the window while giving instructions. The maid didn't know what had happened to the miss. A few days ago, the miss woke up from a nightmare, screaming loudly. As a result, she caught a cold, neither too big nor too small. Afterward, she cried and laughed while hugging the several maids, and the usually quiet miss became even more silent. The maids secretly speculated among themselves that the miss might have encountered something sinister. But the master was out on business, and the madam had gone to the temple, leaving the maids deeply worried. Su Li still felt like she was dreaming. Such an unbelievable thing had happened to her. Had even heaven been unable to bear it and given her a second chance? She had been reborn. She had returned to the year when she was 14. Her mother was still alive, and she hadn't met Zhao Huyan yet. Jun Hui, Zhao Huyan, Su Yue, I Su Li am back. Heaven truly has eyes. In this life, I will repay kindness with kindness, and vengeance with vengeance. Su Li touched the scar on her face. This scar had been there since half a year ago. When she and Su Yue went out, their carriage overturned and she lost consciousness. When she woke up, the scar had appeared. Looking back, it wasn't an accident but a carefully crafted scheme by the mother and daughter from the Western Garden. In her previous life, although she later learned medicine from her master, the scar had been too old to be completely removed. Now, with her medical skills, it was only a matter of time before she could get rid of it. Because of this scar, she had become weak and self-conscious, never leaving the house. But Su Yue, on the other hand, spent every day dressing up, showing off, and to outsiders, she seemed like the legitimate daughter of the Shangshu mansion. She even managed to gain a bit of fame. The four beauties of Tianqi. In this life, with Su Li here, Su Yue will never get the chance to shine. Sikin, later, take Mo Haya and accompany me outside. Sikin, who was tidying the bedding, froze. The miss was going out. Since the miss got this scar on her face, she had refused to go outside. All right, I'll call Mo Haya right away. Just then, a maid entered with some fruit. Sikin smiled happily. Hey, Mo Haya, I was just about to find you. The miss wants us to accompany her outside. Mo Haya placed the fruit on the table and said, that might be later. When I just came back, I saw the second miss heading this way. As soon as Mo Haya finished speaking, Su Yue's voice came from outside. Sister, are you awake? Yes, second miss, you're just in time. Yuqi respectfully led Su Yue into the room. Sister, I'm here to visit you. How are you feeling today? Su Yue entered the room with a sweet smile, expressing concern. Su Li looked at her, gripping her hands tightly, letting her nails dig into her palms without feeling pain. If someone didn't know better, they might think she cared so much for her sister, but in her previous life, hadn't she been deceived by this well-behaved, weak appearance? She had treated this snake-hearted woman as her real sister for so many years. At this moment, Su Yue was only 12, and her acting skills were already so good. It was clear that her concubine mother had put in a lot of effort. Seeing Su Li's grim face, Su Yue hurriedly smiled and said, Sister, are you upset with me for not coming to visit you these past few days? It was because of my grandfather's birthday. I went to celebrate his birthday. As soon as I returned, I heard that you were sick, so I rushed over. Please don't be angry. She then grabbed Su Li's sleeve and shook it. Su Li fought the urge to tear her apart and suppressed her expression. Unintentionally, she pulled her sleeve back and said, I'm happy that you came to see me. How could I be angry? But sister, your grandfather should be from the Wei Guo Gong family, not the Xia family. Don't mix things up, or you'll make people laugh. Hearing this, Su Yue's eyes flashed with a hint of resentment, but she quickly smiled sweetly and stepped forward. You're right, sister, I understand. By the way, in 3 days, it's the annual Qiang Hua banquet of Tianqi. I've prepared a set of green clothes, but I don't have a matching headpiece. I saw that you had a jade headpiece last time, and it would be perfect. Could you lend it to me? Su Li sneered in her heart. Every time this good sister came over, she always took something from her. Sometimes it was jewelry, other times it was fabric. In her previous life, she didn't go out, so she didn't need these things, and every time Su Yue asked, she just gave it to her. She said it was a loan, but when had Su Yue ever returned anything? Now she was asking for something so valuable. This jade headpiece was a birthday gift from her grandmother, worth a fortune. Su Li replied indifferently, Sister, I'm afraid that's not possible. Su Yue immediately lost her smile, but realizing her actions were too obvious, she forced another smile. Sister, it's just for a short while. I'll return it to you after the Qiang Hua banquet. Su Li shook her head. This jade headpiece is invaluable. Grandmother said it was passed down from the ancestors of the Wei family, and my mother also told me to take good care of it. Upon hearing this, Su Yue became more eager to get the headpiece. The ancestors of the Wei Guo Gong family were founding heroes, so the things passed down would be incredibly valuable. Sister, the Wei Guo Gong is also my maternal grandfather. Would it be so difficult to borrow it just once? Su Li furrowed her brows, looking troubled. This. Su Yue pouted. Sister Tilda, please. I'm only borrowing it for a short while. Once the banquet is over, I'll return it to you. Su Li thought for a moment and then said, All right, but you'll have to write an IOU. If Mother asks, I'll need something to explain. Su Yue froze. She had never had to write an IOU for taking Su Li's jewelry. Su Li smiled. This jade headpiece is truly precious. I'm afraid that if Mother asks, I won't be able to explain it. Don't worry, it's just to satisfy Mother. Su Yue then smiled happily. All right, I'll write the IOU right away. Once the IOU was written, Su Li instructed Mo Haya, Go bring the headpiece for the second miss. Mo Haya hesitated. Miss. That's a whole set of 12 pieces. She may say it's a loan, but when has it ever been returned? Su Yue, dissatisfied, glared at Mo Haya. Sister agreed, what's the delay? Su Li looked at Mo Haya. Go ahead. Mo Haya, helpless, turned and went to fetch the headpiece. Su Yue looked at Mo Haya's retreating figure and said to Su Li, Sister, your servant is too rude. If any of my servants dared question my decisions, I'd slap them. Su Li looked at the IOU in her hand and pretended not to hear. Soon, the jade headpiece was brought back. Su Yue eagerly opened the box. Wow, as expected, 12 pieces of jade. So beautiful, Su Yue exclaimed as she touched the headpiece. Mo Haya and Sikin had solemn expressions. She was still the legitimate daughter of the Shangshu mansion, yet she came to the Mrs. Room every time to take advantage. Su Yue closed the box and said, Sister, I'll return to my room now. I'll come see you another day. Without waiting for Su Li to respond, she hugged the box and left with her maids. Miss, you're too generous. That jade headpiece is so valuable, and you just gave it away, Sikin said discontentedly. At this moment, Jishu entered with some snacks and overheard Sikin's words. She was shocked. Miss, you gave the jade headpiece that the Guo Gong madam gave you to the second miss. No wonder she saw the second miss holding a box, smiling so happily. Su Li looked at the IOU and said lightly, It's fine, I'm aware. I'm afraid that Su Yue can't afford this jade headpiece. Upon hearing this, the 3 maids immediately became downcast. Yu Qi stepped forward and smiled. Why are you all so stingy? The 2 sisters share a deep bond. What's a headpiece? Aunt Xia often makes things by hand and gives them to our miss. Su Yue shot a glance at Yu Qi. Had Yu Qi already started collaborating with them? In her previous life, Yu Chi had always spoken highly of them, and because this maid was sweet-talking and knew how to please her, she had always been her favorite. But who knew this would turn out to be a backstabber? Thinking of the pain of being betrayed, Su Li's eyes darkened with coldness. "Miss, did I say something wrong?" In that split second, Yu Chi felt a chill run down her spine and involuntarily shivered. Su Li smiled. "No, you're right." Yu Chi sighed in relief and laughed. "I knew it. Our Miss and Second Miss are the best sisters in the world." Su Li sneered. Indeed, they were the best sisters in the world. Su Li stood up and said, "Sikin, bring me my headscarf. Mo Haya, go ask the doorman to prepare the carriage." "Yes, miss." Yu Chi was surprised. "Miss, you're going out." Su Li nodded. Yu Chi stepped forward. "Miss, let me go with you." "No need. This time Sikin and Mo Haya will go. You and Jishu stay in the yard." Yu Chi pouted. She felt that the miss had become very strange these past few days, not allowing her to serve up close anymore. She looked at Jishu and the others. Had they said something to the miss? Su Li turned her head and looked at her, and Yu Chi quickly averted her gaze. Su Li said, "Next time it'll be your turn." It was easy to deal with Yu Chi, but she still had to keep this pawn around. She would be useful in the future. Yu Chi, seeing this, smiled again and said, "Miss, don't worry. I'll guard the yard well." Chapter 3, The First Bloom of Elegance. Su Li got into the carriage with her maids. "To Zinglin Pharmacy." The coachman responded and drove the carriage forward. Zinglin Pharmacy is the largest pharmacy in the capital. They should be able to provide all the medicinal ingredients she needed. Her scars required medicinal ingredients, and that person's cold illness should be very serious by now. She needed to find an opportunity to visit Prince Jaeng's estate. Junmo's cold illness was likely acquired 4 years ago at the border. 4 years ago, Northern Flame suddenly launched an attack, and Junmo, at the tender age of 18, joined the army. It was said that the border was harsh and that it was a bitter battle. That war lasted a year and a half, and news of Junmo's death even spread at one point. However, in the end, Northern Flame signed a surrender, and Junmo returned triumphantly. The entire nation celebrated. Junmo achieved outstanding military merits, and the emperor was greatly pleased, immediately bestowing upon him the title of Prince Jaeng. He was the first among the 4 princes to be enfeoffed as a prince, aside from the crown prince. Thinking of Junmo, Su Li felt a deep sense of guilt, yet also some warmth. For a moment, her heart felt sour and bitter, an unpleasant taste. "Miss, are you feeling unwell? Why are we going to the pharmacy?" Si Chin asked worriedly. Su Li faintly shook her head, leaned against the carriage wall, and closed her eyes. "Just buying some medicinal ingredients to keep on hand." Si Chin and Mo Hua were a little puzzled. When did Miss become knowledgeable in medicine? But seeing that she didn't want to say more, the 2 maids stopped asking. Listening to the hawkers' cries and the children's laughter and play outside, Su Li felt a bit more real. Soon the carriage stopped. "Miss, we've arrived." Si Chin and Mo Hua got out first, then carefully helped her down from the carriage. The mistress and her 2 maids entered the pharmacy. A pharmacy assistant immediately greeted them. "Miss, are you here for a consultation or to pick up medicine? Our resident doctor is out on a house call, so if you need a consultation, you'll have to wait a while." Su Li said, "I'm here to pick up medicine. Give me paper and a pen. I'll list the medicinal ingredients I need." "All right, miss, please wait." The pharmacy assistant handed her paper and a pen. Su Li took the pen and listed the medicinal ingredients. "Here, prepare the medicine according to these measurements." Su Li handed the prescription to the assistant. The assistant took the prescription, glanced at it, then looked up at Su Li again. This young lady not only has a pleasant voice, but her handwriting is also exquisite. It's a pity she's wearing a veiled hat, so I can't see her face clearly. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Su Li asked, seeing that he wasn't moving. The assistant snapped out of his daze. Oh, no. I'll get the medicine for you right away, miss, please wait." As the mistress and her 2 maids waited for the medicine, there was a sudden commotion outside. Doctor, help, please save my son. Bayor, hold on, doctor, doctor. Make way, please make way. Su Li turned around and saw a man carrying a child, about 2 or 3 years old, followed by a tearful woman. The couple's clothes were patched, and their faces were filled with terror. The child in the man's arms had a purplish-blue face and closed eyes. His chest, faintly rising and falling, indicated that he was still alive. The man shouted as soon as he entered the pharmacy, "Dr. Changchun, please save my son, Dr. Changchun." The pharmacy assistant quickly came out from behind the counter and asked, "What happened?" The woman cried, "It's all my fault. I was cooking and I didn't watch the child for a moment. This happened. We went to several medical halls and the doctors said he accidentally ate some golden grass and all shook their heads, saying there was no hope. Oh heavens, I only have this one child. If anything happens to him, I won't live either." As the words, "golden grass," were uttered, the surrounding onlookers began to whisper amongst themselves. Golden grass, that's a poisonous herb. What a pity. This mother is too careless. How could she let such a small child out of her sight? I've never heard of anyone surviving after eating golden grass. This child is probably doomed. Dr. Changchun is the best doctor in the capital. Maybe he has a way. The man holding the child shouted at the assistant, "Where is Dr. Changchun? Quickly let him come out." The assistant said with a bitter face, "Dr. Changchun has gone out on a house call. It will take at least 1 or 2 hours." As these words were uttered, the couple's faces were filled with despair. What can we do? Is this heaven's will to cut off our Wang family's lineage? Bayar, my Bayar, you're taking your mother's life. Bayar, don't be afraid, mother will accompany you. Oh, how pitiful. Sigh. The man looked at the assistant and said, "Quickly send someone to invite Dr. Changchun back. A life is at stake." The pharmacy assistant shook his head and said, "It's useless. Even if Dr. Changchun came, it would be no use. Last year, someone accidentally ate golden grass, and Dr. Changchun was helpless." As these words fell, the man slumped to the ground, but still tightly held the child in his arms. The taut string snapped, and he wailed along with his wife. "Let me try," a clear voice rang out from behind the crowd. Su Li originally didn't want to meddle in others' affairs. Her wings were not yet fully grown, and it was not convenient to draw too much attention. However, seeing the couple in such agony, and remembering how her mother had held her prematurely born dead infant without a word in her previous life, she changed her mind. The crowd parted, revealing a woman wearing a veiled hat. Although her face couldn't be seen clearly, from her stature, she appeared to be just a young girl. The couple looked up with hope, but then a hint of disappointment crossed their faces when they saw Su Li. Si Chin and Mo Hua quickly blocked her. "Miss, this concerns a human life. You don't know medicine. Let's leave quickly," Si Chin whispered. "Yes, miss, if you pity them, your servant can give them some silver. Let's go quickly," Mo Hua echoed. Su Li reassured the two. "It's all right. I'll just take a look." She walked up to the couple and said, "Things can't get any worse than they are now, can they? Let me try. Perhaps there's still a glimmer of hope." The woman asked suspiciously, "Are you a doctor?" Su Li said faintly, "I've studied medicine for many years." She wasn't lying. In her previous life, after her mother fell ill and passed away, she apprenticed herself to a doctor. The man glanced at the child in his arms, whose breath was barely discernible, then gritted his teeth and said, "All right, you can try." The woman was surprised. "Husband, if this continues, the child will be gone anyway. Might as well let this young lady try." The man looked at the child in his arms with a pained expression. Seeing the couple nod in agreement, Su Li looked at the pharmacy assistant and said, "I'll borrow your space." Then she asked the man to place the child on the examination couch in the medical hall. Su Li wrote a prescription and handed it to the pharmacy assistant. "Prepare the medicine according to this. Be quick. Do you have golden needles in your shop?" The assistant took the prescription and said, "Yes, miss, please wait." The assistant brought the golden needles and handed them to Su Li, then hurried off to prepare the medicine. Su Li opened the golden needles and examined them. Although they weren't as good as the ones she had in her previous life, they were complete enough. Just as she was about to insert the needles, her wrist was grabbed by Si Chin. The two maids were almost in tears. What was wrong with Miss? Not only was she giving random prescriptions, but she was also going to stab needles into someone's child. If anything happened to the child, how much trouble would Miss be in? Su Li said faintly, "Take your hand away. I know what I'm doing." "Miss." "Let go." Si Chin had no choice but to release her hand, watching helplessly as her young mistress placed needle after needle into the child. After inserting the needles, Su Li's forehead was covered in a fine layer of sweat. Mo Hua quickly stepped forward to wipe it away for her. "Remove the needles in 15 minutes, Su Li said to the child, her voice cold. The woman went up to the child, then looked suspiciously at Su Li and asked, "Is that it?" Su Li said coldly, "No, this only prevents the poison from spreading further. The remaining poison still needs to be cleared later." Just then, the pharmacy assistant brought the medicine. "Miss, the medicine is ready." Su Li nodded and said, "Wait until I remove the needles, then feed it to him." The crowd outside lingered for a long time, not dispersing. Isn't this girl just messing around? I'm an old man who's lived for 70 or 80 years, and I've never heard of anyone being able to cure golden grass poisoning. That's right. The child is already dying, and he'll only suffer more in the end. Don't say that. I think this girl's technique looks very professional. She must have some skills. So what if she has some skills? She can't cure a poison that even Dr. Changchun couldn't. How could this little girl cure it? Su Li ignored these people. As soon as the 15 minutes were up, she began to remove the golden needles. "Bring the medicine over." The woman stepped forward and helped the boy up, letting him lean in her arms. The pharmacy assistant held the medicine bowl and slowly fed it to him. Su Li breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he could still swallow on his own. After drinking the medicine, the child suddenly struggled and looked very uncomfortable. "Young lady, what is this?" the man asked in a panic. Su Li raised her hand to interrupt his question. Suddenly, the child's head tilted, and he threw up all over the floor with a wah sound. "Ah, my child, my child!" The woman immediately cried out, shaking the child. The man took 2 steps forward, then turned his head and stared coldly at Su Li. "What's going on?" Su Li calmly said, "Don't shake the child. Place him on the examination couch. This is vomiting. Most of the poison has been expelled. The remaining toxins will be fine with follow-up medication." The couple looked at the child again. Indeed, his face was no longer as purplish blue and frightening. He whimpered a few times, then fell into a deep sleep. Su Li stepped forward and felt the child's pulse. She said, "His life is no longer in danger. I'll write another prescription. 2 more doses, and he'll be fine." In truth, the poison of golden grass was not difficult to cure. It was just that no one knew how to use golden needles to block the spread of the poison. This set of needle techniques was uniquely created by her old master. Thinking of that eccentric old man, Su Li's heart warmed slightly. The woman attended to the child, then turned to Su Li and said, "Thank you, miss. You are the great benefactor of our family." The man stepped forward and immediately knelt on the ground, cupping his hands. "Miss has saved my son, which is equivalent to saving the lives of my Wang family. Miss's great kindness, Wang Wei cannot repay. Whatever Miss commands, Wang Wei will go through fire and water without hesitation." The man's kneel startled Si Chin and Mo Hua, who were still reeling from the shock of their young mistress successfully saving someone. Su Li said faintly, "You may rise first." The man shook his head, firmly saying, "Miss, if you don't agree to me serving by your side, I will not rise. I, Wang Wei, have nothing else, but I do have immense strength. It would be acceptable for this humble one to serve as a gatekeeper in your esteemed residence." Su Li pondered for a moment, then said, "Rise first. Take care of your child for now. 7 days later, go to Zui Xianju and find the shopkeeper there." The man cupped his hands and said, "Yes." Wang Wei rose and turned to look at his child. Su Li said to her 2 maids, "Let's go." As the three walked out, the crowd automatically parted to make way. When they emerged, applause erupted from behind them. Someone can actually cure golden grass poisoning. This little girl, her medical skills are even above Dr. Changchun's. Incredible. Woo woo woo. If only I had met this girl earlier, my cousin wouldn't have died. Woo woo woo. Getting into the carriage, Su Li said to the coachman, "To Zui Xianju." Chapter 4. Cut off her financial path. Su Li smiled slightly, seeing her two maids staring intently at her. "Ask whatever you want." Si Chin hesitated to speak, but Mo Hua couldn't hold back her curiosity and asked, "Miss, when did you learn medicine?" The maids had been with their young mistress since childhood and had never known that she possessed medical skills, and very formidable ones at that, capable of even curing golden grass poisoning. Su Li leaned against the carriage wall and lazily said, "Your mistress was favored by an immortal. An old immortal taught me in my dreams." The two maids looked at her in annoyance. "Miss, do you take us for 3-year-olds?" Su Li looked at the two maids. She was indeed favored by an immortal, which allowed her to be reborn. "I taught myself. There are so many books in Father's study, many of them medical texts." This was true. Ever since she got that scar on her face, she rarely went out. The most common thing she did every day was to go to her father's study to read books. Seeing the two maids look at her with pained expressions, Su Li smiled. "It's all right. What is lost in the East is gained in the West. See, haven't I gained a skill in medicine?" Si Chin recalled something about the estate and said, "Miss, although you don't like going out, there's no need to give all your clothes and jewelry to second miss besides. Those 12 jade pieces were given to you by the Duchess." Su Li chuckled. "Those 12 pieces aren't so easy to wear. She's a concubine's daughter, wearing such precious items to the Qianghua banquet." Heh heh. Mo Hua's eyes lit up. "Miss, your servant understands. If second miss truly wears the 12 jade pieces, she will definitely become the target of public criticism. We know very well the methods of those noble ladies. By then." Su Li sneered. Yes, no one knew the methods of those noble ladies better than she did. After her disfigurement, she didn't just cower in the estate every day at first. But every banquet, there would be all sorts of accidents, and although she was of noble status, it was impossible to guard against the subtle obstacles those noble ladies would secretly set up. Even with her noble status, it was like this, let alone Su Yue. Others might not know about this Qianghua banquet, but she knew it was for selecting a consort for the crown prince to bring good fortune. The crown prince had been bedridden for months, and the imperial physicians in the palace were helpless. As his condition grew increasingly serious, the Imperial Astronomy Bureau suggested selecting a consort to bring good fortune. If Su Yue wanted to show off, let her go. Anyway, as a concubine's daughter, the empress wouldn't think much of her. "Miss, we've arrived at Zui Xianju," the coachman's voice came. Si Chin and Mo Hua helped Su Li alight from the carriage. Si Chin asked, "Miss, what are we doing at Zui Xianju?" Although Zui Xianju was the madam's property, Miss never bothered with such trivial matters. "Audit the accounts," Su Li softly uttered 2 words. "Audit the accounts." Seeing that Miss was unwilling to say more, Si Chin and the other maid stopped asking questions and followed Su Li into Zui Xianju. Zui Xianju was one of the top restaurants in the capital. It was packed with customers every day, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say it brought in a fortune daily, but the reality was not like that. As soon as they entered Zui Xianju, a man in his 40s came to greet them. "Miss, why have you come?" Su Li said, "Uncle Lin, my mother has gone on a long trip. I've come to check this month's accounts." Shopkeeper Lin chuckled. "Miss has truly grown up and knows how to share madam's burdens. Just yesterday, Accountant Zia said the account books were ready. Come, let's go to the accounts room." Su Li nodded and walked ahead. Uncle Lin, who recommended this Accountant Zia. Shopkeeper Lin thought for a moment and replied, "Master arranged for him to come. He said he was very capable." Su Li sneered inwardly. Capable indeed. Otherwise, how could he have smoothed the accounts so perfectly without arousing suspicion, making mother unaware for so long? Unfortunately, he ran into her. This accountant was actually Concubine Zia's elder brother, Su Yue's maternal uncle. Half of the money he embezzled went into the pockets of the person in the west courtyard. The precious silks and expensive jewelry that Su Yue wore all came from here. Upon reaching the accounts room, they saw Zia Jiang already inside. "Miss has come to check the accounts. Quickly bring out the account books," shopkeeper Lin said to Zia Jiang. Zia Jiang chuckled. "Ah, miss, please sit. Please wait a moment." Su Li sat down on a chair, with Si Chin and Mo Hua standing behind her. Su Li observed Zia Jiang. On the surface, he looked honest and steady, but who knew he was so black-hearted? In her previous life, this person ran away with the funds from Zui Xianju. When the person from the west courtyard cried, full of remorse, begging her father and mother for forgiveness, saying she was tricked by her brother, she then realized that this person was actually Su Yue's maternal uncle. "Miss, these are this month's accounts. Please take a look." Zia Jiang's face was respectful, but the contempt in his eyes was clearly seen by Su Li. Does he think that because her mother couldn't spot the loopholes, she wouldn't be able to either? "Heh." Su Li chuckled. "Accountant Zia, please bring last month's account books as well for me to see." Zia Jiang was startled. Could she really see something? But then he thought, how could a young lady from an official family, who never leaves her house, understand these things? "All right, miss, please wait." 2 months' worth of account books were placed on the table. Su Li picked up the books and slowly read through them page by page. "How long has accountant Zia been at Zui Xianju?" Su Li asked, seemingly casually. Replying to Miss, "Almost 2 years." 2 years? Then he embezzled quite a lot. Su Li placed the account book heavily on the table. With a thud, Zia Jiang was startled. "Miss, is there something wrong with the accounts?" Zia Jiang asked cautiously. Su Li looked at him coldly and said, "Accountant Zia, do you truly believe that no one can see the tricks in these accounts?" Zia Jiang immediately turned pale and cried out in injustice. "Miss, I, old Zia, have been diligently working at Zui Xianju for 2 years. What do you mean by that?" "What do I mean? Then tell me at the beginning of the month you bought a batch of grain which was enough for Zui Xianju for a month. At the end of the month you bought another batch. Let's assume you bought it for next month. But then you bought it again in the middle of the second month and again at the beginning of the third month. How do you explain that? Normally, buying 1 batch a month would be enough. By this calculation, he bought 3 batches in 2 months. But the audit only covered the current month, which is why Mother didn't discover this loophole." Zia Jiang's face instantly paled, and he wiped the sweat from his forehead, saying, "Miss, grain is cheaper in summer, so we need to buy more to store for winter." Su Li chuckled. "Oh, then where is the stored grain?" Zia Jiang wiped his sweat and said, "This humble one had it stored in an outside warehouse." Su Li smiled faintly. "Bring me both years' worth of account books." "This." "What? The owner wants to check the accounts and you refuse? Or does accountant Zia have a guilty conscience? Do I need to report to the authorities?" Si Chin and Mo Hua's eyes widened in surprise. Was this still their usually melancholy young mistress? Shopkeeper Lin also looked at Zia Jiang and said, "What are you waiting for? Go quickly. Miss wants to check the accounts. Why are you stalling? Do you really have a guilty conscience?" Zia Jiang's heart was filled with bitterness. He had thought this was a useless young lady, but unexpectedly, she was a tough nut to crack. If he didn't bring the account books, she would report to the authorities. If he brought the account books, it would also be a big trouble. "Forget it, I'll just get through this for now, then go to my sister for help." Zia Jiang turned and brought out a stack of account books. "Miss, these are the account books for the past 2 years." Su Li took the account books and looked through them. She chuckled. "Accountant Zia is truly considerate of Zui Xianju. He's been hoarding grain since last year. There must be hundreds of thousands of jin of grain in that outside warehouse, right? Then we won't need to buy any this winter. 3 days from now, I'll go check this batch of grain." Zia Jiang was dumbfounded. "What? Is there a problem?" No problem." Zia Jiang wiped his sweat. Su Li stood up and said, "That's good. Well, I should head back now. I'll come again in 3 days. Downstairs, shopkeeper Lynn's face was full of apologies. Miss, I'm sorry, I didn't even notice accountant Zia had a problem. What hoarding grain? He knew nothing about it. If Miss hadn't checked the accounts, those hundreds of thousands of jin of grain would have surely ended up in Zia Jiang's pockets. Su Li chuckled. Uncle Lin, you don't need to blame yourself. This person was recommended by my father, so of course you would trust him. But Uncle Lin, this Zia Jiang is the elder brother of that person in the West Courtyard. What? Su Li said. Uncle Lin, find someone to watch him these few days. Don't let him run away. Shopkeeper Lin immediately said, Miss, rest assured. Su Li naturally trusted shopkeeper Lin. This restaurant was her mother's dowry, and Uncle Lin was also someone her maternal grandmother had given to her mother. By the way, in 6 or 7 days, a man named Wang Gui will come looking for you. Have him help out in the restaurant for now. I have other plans for him later. Yes, miss. Getting into the carriage, Si Chin eagerly asked, Miss, that accountant clearly embezzled funds. Why don't you report him to the authorities? Su Li said, Report him? That person in our estate can push the blame completely clean. I'll give him 3 days to spit out all the embezzled money. She knew that the bulk of this money was in the West Courtyard. She naturally didn't want them to live a carefree life, so she had to cut off their path to wealth first. Once Zia Jiang emptied the West Courtyard, she'd see how that mother and daughter could live so freely. But miss, what if concubine Zia refuses to hand it over no matter what? Su Li sneered. She will. Zia Jiang had helped his sister conceal more than 1 or 2 things over the years. With this leverage, would concubine Zia dare not hand it over? If she reported it and pushed concubine Zia too hard, making her own brother die in prison, she believed concubine Zia would still do it. By then, where would she find out concubine Zia's secrets? She still remembered Su Yue's words before her death in her previous life, saying that she wasn't her father's daughter at all. That is, concubine Zia had someone else outside more than 10 years ago. Chapter 5. Harboring Evil Intentions. Returning to the estate, as soon as Su Li entered the door, she saw a beautiful woman rushing towards her. Lear, I heard you were ill. Let mother see you quickly. Mother Su pulled her daughter's hand, examining her from head to toe. She didn't dare to get too close. Her daughter was already not very close to her, and after the scar on her face, she became even more reclusive. Looking at her mother, alive and well before her, Su Li's eyes welled up, and she plunged into Mother Su's embrace. Mother, your daughter missed you so much. Mother Su stiffened, her heart filled with surprised joy. This was the first time her daughter had been so close to her in years. Mother Su hugged her daughter, gently stroking her back. Be good, Lear. It's all Mother's fault. Mother wasn't by your side when you were ill. Are you much better now? Su Li pulled out of Mother Su's embrace and walked hand in hand with her mother towards her own courtyard. Mother, my cold is already gone. Mother was also doing it for grandmother. How can you blame Mother? These past few days were grandmother's death anniversary. Every year, father and mother would go to the temple for 7 days of fasting. Mother Su smiled contentedly. Our Lear has truly grown up. She knows how to be considerate of her parents now. Upon reaching the room, Su Li removed her veiled hat. Sunlight streamed into the room. Looking at her daughter bathed in sunlight, Mother Su was momentarily dazed. Her daughter was even more beautiful than she had been in her youth. Mother, what's wrong? Su Li turned to her mother and asked softly. Seeing the scar on the other half of her daughter's face, Mother Su sighed inwardly. Lear, a woman's appearance isn't actually that important. What's most important is her inner self. You don't have to hide in the estate just for this small scar. You should go out more like today, and your mood will also improve. Su Li knew these were her mother's words of comfort. How could appearance not be important? In her previous life, because of this scar, how much had she paid? But it was also because of this scar that she finally saw the people around her clearly. Su Li smiled. Mother, I know, don't worry. I've thought it through. At worst, I won't marry and will stay with you and father my whole life. Mother Su's heart was filled with pity. Silly girl, my Lear is so good. You will always meet a destined person who doesn't care about appearance and truly loves you. Su Li didn't answer. In this life, she no longer yearned for love. Her mission was to seek revenge and repay kindness, and to protect her family. Su Li changed the subject and said with a faint smile, "Mother, today I went to help you check the accounts of Zui Xianju. Guess what I found?" Mother Su's eyes widened in surprise. "Lear, you went to Zui Xianju and even checked the accounts." This girl never wanted to appear in crowded places and never wanted to socialize. This time, she actually took the initiative to go out and even helped her check the accounts. How could this not surprise her? Su Li helped Mother Su sit down and poured her a cup of tea. "Mother, for the past 6 months, your daughter has been too insensible. From now on, your daughter will never make you and Father worry again." Mother Su was already overwhelmed with excitement and relief. Her daughter had suddenly become so sensible after she went out. Mother Su pulled her daughter and hugged her again. "Lear is very good, always very good." The mother and daughter lingered for a while, then Su Li brought up the main topic. "Mother, I found something when I was checking the accounts." Mother Su smiled and said, "What is it?" Mother Su didn't think it was a big deal, assuming it was just her daughter's childishness, checking accounts to pass the time. But thinking that her daughter was willing to go out, she let her be. Su Li said seriously, "Mother, your daughter discovered that Zui Xianju's accountant imports grain 3 times every 2 months. Didn't Mother notice anything wrong?" Mother Su's expression became more serious when she heard this. She frowned and thought carefully. It seemed there were times when grain was brought in once a month, and other times twice. Mother Su's heart sank. This accountant Zia was someone Master had recommended, so she had trusted him completely. Su Li saw from her mother's expression what she was thinking. "Mother, Father also doesn't know what kind of person this accountant Zia is. He only knows that he indeed has a talent for managing accounts. Your daughter also accidentally learned that that person is Concubine Zia's elder brother." "What?" Concubine Zia, as a concubine, was a servant. Her family had never visited the minister's estate. Therefore, Mother Su had never seen Zia Jiang. "Be good, Lear. You rest first. Mother has something to attend to." Su Li didn't stop her. She should let her mother go and see for herself. Otherwise, just like her past self, she would truly believe that the person in the West Courtyard was honest and upright. Little did she know that the mother and daughter had always harbored malicious intentions. They were devils in human skin. Chapter 6. Biting the Hand That Feeds. After Mother Su left, Su Li stood up, picked up the medicinal ingredients she had bought, and walked out of the room. "Guard the courtyard, don't let anyone in." After saying this to her maids, she plunged into the side room. Yuki craned her neck and looked inside, saying, "What is young Miss doing?" Si Chin said coldly, "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." Recently, Yuki had become increasingly annoying. She would constantly speak favorably of the West Courtyard in front of young Miss, doing no work all day, only seeking opportunities to curry favor. Yuki pouted. "Si Chin, what do you mean? I was just curious, what's wrong with that?" Si Chin sneered and didn't answer. Yuki, seeing her silence, felt even more justified. "Si Chin, you wouldn't think that just because young Miss took you out, you could replace me, would you? Let me tell you, don't even dream of it. Young Miss can't do without me." Mo Hua and Jai Shu quickly came to mediate. "What's wrong with you two? We're all doing this for young Miss's sake, so don't be angry." "Exactly, speak softer. It wouldn't be good to disturb young Miss." Yuki said proudly, "It's all because Si Chin is jealous that young Miss favors me," speaking sarcastically. "What's all this noise?" As the few of them were arguing, the side room door suddenly opened, and Su Li's icy voice came through. Young Miss." The maids immediately fell silent. Su Li looked at Si Chin and said, "Si Chin, you speak." Having disturbed young Miss, Si Chin knew she was at fault and lowered her head, about to admit her mistake. Yuki, fearing she would complain, spoke first. "Young Miss, Sister Si Chin might be displeased with your servant. Your servant was just concerned about young Miss and asked a question, and Sister Si Chin scolded your servant." Her appearance was a spitting image of that second Miss from the West Courtyard. Su Li glanced at Si Chin and said, "Si Chin, is that so?" Si Chin looked up and said, Young miss, your servant knows her mistake. Su Li laughed in exasperation. This silly girl. Young miss, don't blame Sister Si Chin. She must be scolding your servant because young miss took her out today and she was momentarily pleased. Yuki looked pitifully at Su Li. Su Li had never found Yuki this annoying before. Go kneel outside the courtyard for 2 hours, Su Li said airily, lowering her eyes. Yuki looked triumphantly at Si Chin and said, Sister Si Chin, didn't you hear young miss? Young miss told you to go kneel for 2 hours. So many servants coming and going outside the courtyard. How humiliating would that be? Su Li suddenly looked up at Yuki and said coldly, I'm talking about you. Yuki was momentarily bewildered. Wah, what? Su Li said coldly, do I need to repeat myself? Yuki was incredulous. Young miss, why? It was clearly Si Chin who made a mistake. Su Li sneered. You're not wrong. Casually prying into your master's affairs, slandering others, stirring up trouble with your tongue, you're not wrong. Your master didn't ask you a question, and you interrupted casually, you're not wrong. Stepping back, does a master need a reason to punish a servant? Yuki's face turned pale. Before, she used to speak casually in front of this young miss, and the young miss never pursued it. What was wrong today? Su Li looked at her and spoke coldly again. What? Do you have more to say? Do you want me to hand your deed of servitude to a maid broker and send you off to find another master? Yuki quickly said, Your servant was wrong. Your servant will go kneel now. I'll kneel until young miss is satisfied. With that, she turned and left the courtyard, kneeling at the entrance. Su Li looked at Si Chin and said, Si Chin, were you wrong? Young miss, Si Chin knows her mistake. Si Chin will go kneel now, Si Chin said, and was about to walk out of the courtyard. Su Li said helplessly, Come back. Si Chin stopped and looked back at her, puzzled. Young miss, do you know what your mistake was? Si Chin thought for a moment and said, My mistake was engaging in a verbal dispute and disturbing young miss. Su Li sighed inwardly. You three listen carefully. You three are the only maids I trust. My people cannot be weak. If you haven't made a mistake, you don't need to admit it, no matter who the other party is. Do you understand? Understood. Su Li looked at Si Chin and asked, Do you know what your mistake was now? This maid, in her previous life, had followed her to marry into the Zhao estate. She was defiled by that beast Zhao Huyan, and Su Yue even said it was her fault for seducing him. Her past self actually believed it, resented this maid in her heart, and distanced herself from her. She never expected that in the end, this maid sacrificed herself, stealing the key to the woodshed to save her. Unfortunately, she was killed by those two bastards. Zhai Shu, before she was married, was falsely accused of stealing Su Yue's jewelry and was sold off. And Mo Hua was married off to Su Yue's lame cousin. In this life, Su Li would never let the people around her repeat the same mistakes. Looking at Su Li's serious gaze, Si Chin looked up and said firmly, Your servant understands. Your servant was not wrong. Yuki was wrong. Su Li nodded, looking at these three vivacious maids. Her personal maids were originally carefully selected by Mother Su, and over the years they had also learned to read and write alongside Su Li. As the young mistress's senior maids, they didn't have to do rough chores. One could say these maids were even more refined than young ladies from small, less prominent families. The soft-hearted Mo Hua said, Young miss, the sun is quite harsh. I'm afraid Yuki won't be able to bear kneeling for 2 hours. Su Li sneered. For a disloyal servant, making her kneel for 2 hours is truly letting her off easy. If she weren't planning to keep her for future use, her life would be forfeit right now. The three maids' eyes widened in surprise. Disloyal? Miss, are you mistaken? Although Yuki is a bit proud, she is still good to miss, Zhai Shu said in surprise. Su Li said coldly, No mistake. Your 4 monthly wages are the same, but her clothes and accessories are better than yours. Where did that money come from? Remember, Yuki is not to be trusted. Seeing her so certain, the three maids couldn't help but believe her somewhat. No wonder Yuki was so attentive to the west courtyard. The three of them all called her Miss, but Yuki called her Young Miss. Once suspicion arose about a person, Then some previously ordinary small matters gradually became deliberate and cunning. The three also gradually understood that Yuki had been won over by the West Courtyard. Zhaishu said furiously, "This traitor." Si Qin said, "Miss, don't worry, we will guard against her. She won't get anything out of us that she shouldn't know." Ever since Miss fell ill, it was as if she had suddenly gained insight. She was no longer so close to the West Courtyard. Miss must have discovered second Miss's insincerity. Their daily advice had finally worked. Su Li saw that they understood her meaning and said, "Guard the door. Don't let anyone know what I'm doing." "Yes, Miss." In truth, the three of them didn't know what Miss was doing. They only knew that Miss had taken many medicinal ingredients inside. Chapter 7. Mother and Daughter United in Heart. Yuki knelt in the courtyard, and the servants passing by whispered amongst themselves. "What are you looking at?" Yuki angrily snapped at the servants. She felt extremely disgruntled. Young Miss has been acting strangely these past 2 days. Why did her attitude towards me suddenly change? It's bad enough that she's siding with Si Qin, but she even made me, a senior maid, kneel outside the courtyard to be pointed at by these little wretches. Second Miss is much better. She's gentle and generous to her servants. The news of Yuki kneeling in the courtyard also reached Su Yue. "This is truly heaven helping me. Liyuer, when it gets dark, you take some medicine to Yuki. Do I still need to teach you what to say?" Su Yue said sweetly. Although her voice was gentle and pleasant, her maid Liyuer replied with trepidation, "Your servant understands." Su Yue looked at herself in the mirror with satisfaction, smiling. "I thought eldest sister's maids were unyielding, but I didn't expect Yuki to be so ambitious. This is exactly what I want." The sky gradually darkened, and lights were lit in the courtyard. Su Li finally opened the door. Holding a small porcelain bottle in her hand, she curved her lips in satisfaction. The scar removal medicine was ready. She believed that in a month, she wouldn't need to wear a veiled hat or veil when going out. "Miss, Sister Wangxia just came to deliver a message, asking Miss to dine with Madam," Mo Hua stepped forward and said. Su Li nodded and said, "Let's go." She left Si Qin in the courtyard and walked to the courtyard gate with Zhaishu and Mo Hua, where Yuki was still kneeling. "Miss, your servant knows her mistake. Please, Miss, forgive your servant this once." As soon as Yuki saw Su Li, she pleaded. "Kneel for 2 full hours before rising." Leaving this sentence, Su Li walked straight past Yuki with her 2 maids and exited the courtyard. Yuki watched their retreating figures, and resentment and indignation gradually surfaced in her eyes. Compared to this disfigured young lady, she, Yuki, was superior in both looks and knowledge. She was just lucky enough to be born into the madam's belly. Liyuer, hiding behind a tree, saw all of Yuki's resentment. After the others left, she emerged from behind the tree. Su Li arrived at Mother Su's courtyard. "Mother!" Mother Su stood up and smiled. "You've come. Sit. It's been a long time since mother and daughter had a meal together." Su Li walked over and helped her, guiltily saying, "Then, Lear will come over every day from now on to freeload on Mother's food." Mother Su patted her daughter's hand and said, "Good, good. Your father sent word that he'll be back tomorrow. Our family can finally have a good reunion." Su Li nodded and said, She helped Mother Su sit down, personally arranged her bowl and chopsticks, then sat beside her. Mother and daughter took turns serving each other food. Mother Su looked at her daughter's changes, her heart filled with immense comfort. Ever since her daughter got the scar on her face, she hadn't eaten with others, and Mother Su understood. Now, seeing her daughter openly remove her veil and eat, she was both surprised and delighted. "Mother, what's wrong?" Seeing her mother looking at her constantly, Su Li looked up and asked. Mother Su smiled. "Nothing, Mother is just happy. It's good that Lear has come to terms with it." Su Li chuckled. "Mother, it was your daughter who was insensible before, making you worry. By the way, Mother, did you go to Zui Xianju this afternoon?" Mother Su looked at her kindly, recalling what she learned from shopkeeper Lin at Zui Xianju this afternoon. She said, "I went. I rechecked the accounts. As expected, there were many tricks. Mother listened to shopkeeper Lin and didn't expose the matter. Lear, why didn't you report it to the authorities?" Was it out of consideration for the West Courtyard? Lear has been very close to the West Courtyard these past few years, even closer to them than to her own mother. But as soon as she thought of this, she couldn't swallow her anger. She had thought the West Courtyard was honest and upright and treated Lear well, so she was willing to give the West Courtyard some face. Who knew such a thing would happen? She didn't believe the West Courtyard was unaware. No wonder that mother and daughter in the West Courtyard lived such carefree and happy lives. So they were squandering the money from her shop. She prided herself on not being harsh as a mistress. She had never withheld a single penny that should have gone to the West Courtyard. However, a concubine's monthly allowance was limited, yet she heard that the West Courtyard was always generous with its rewards to servants. She had thought it was her maternal family supplementing them, but it turned out to be ill-gotten gains. Su Li chuckled. "Mother, your daughter wasn't being considerate of the West Courtyard. I wanted the West Courtyard to spit out the money first. In 3 days, Mother and I will go together to see the grain that accountant Zia hoarded for our Zui Xianju." After speaking, she playfully winked at Mother Su. Mother Su chuckled, remembering 3 days later. 3 days later is the Qianghua banquet. Aren't you going? Su Li shook her head and said, "Your daughter isn't going. It's not because of inferiority, but because I find these banquets rather meaningless. Going there is just to watch the noble ladies secretly compete with each other." Mother Su looked at her daughter's unblemished left face and sighed. "Lear, do you still remember the details of that disaster a year ago?" She had never suspected the West Courtyard before, but now that her suspicion of the West Courtyard had opened a crack, she began to think more. That day, her daughter was originally in her carriage, but Su Yue called her daughter to her carriage. The carriage overturned, and when she got out to check, her daughter's face was already covered in blood. Su Li didn't expect her mother to be so perceptive, able to infer so much. She thought for a moment and said, "Mother, it's all in the past now. Even if we have suspicions, there's no evidence." In truth, she knew that this scar looked more like it was left by a hairpin. She had always known that Su Yue was jealous of her appearance. Several times, she had seen Su Yue look at her face with resentful eyes, but Su Yue was always good at concealing it. She used to be foolish, even thinking she had misread the situation. She wanted to ruin my appearance, but I will not let her have her way. Mother, the reason concubine Zia dared to harbor such thoughts this time is also because Mother is too lenient. You're considerate of her. You let her have her own small kitchen in the West Courtyard, and you even gave her the deeds of servitude for the West Courtyard's servants. Have you ever seen a mistress so generous? Feeling that her daughter's words made sense, she thought that she was being generous and her household was peaceful. But she didn't know that some people, the more you give in, the more they take advantage. Su Li said no more. She knew that her mother was an extremely intelligent person, a trait she inherited from her maternal grandmother. Now that suspicion had arisen in her mother's heart regarding the West Courtyard, she would naturally keep a closer eye on that mother and daughter pair in the future. Next up was her father. After dinner, Su Li chatted with Mother Su for a while longer before excusing herself with her maids. As soon as she returned to her room, Si Chin stepped forward and said, "Miss, after you left, I deliberately stayed in the room and didn't go out. I noticed Liuer, who is second Mrs. Maid, came to find Yuki and gave her a bottle of ointment." Zhai Shu and Mo Hua's eyes instantly widened. Miss really didn't wrong Yuki. The 4 of them had been with Miss since childhood. Miss had been nothing but kind to them. Su Li curved her lips and said coldly, "She sure knows how to play the good person." Zhai Shu stepped forward and said, "Miss, should we give Yuki a warning?" Su Li shook her head. "No need. What I want is for them to conspire. You just need to pay close attention secretly. Si Chin, you must guard my personal clothing. If anything is missing, tell me immediately." Si Chin nodded and said, "Miss, rest assured." Chapter 8, The Duke of Wei's Mansion. The next morning, concubine Zia quickly left the estate with her maid. When Si Chin reported this, Su Li merely smiled faintly. She must be coming to collect debts. Si Chin was puzzled but didn't ask further. Mo Hua and Zhai Shu were dressing Su Li. "No need to bother, it won't look any better," Su Li said calmly. Thinking young Miss was sad again, Si Chin said heartbrokenly, "Miss." "I'm fine. Today, I'm going to my maternal grandfather's estate. I'll wear the shoe brocade set that Aunt gave me. She truly wasn't sad. The scar on her face would heal eventually. Concubine Zia hurriedly arrived at the restaurant, familiarly ascended to the second floor, and pushed open the door to the private room. "Brother, why are you so anxious to see me? Your letter wasn't clear either," Concubine Zia complained. Zia Jiang saw her enter, quickly stood up, and anxiously said, "Sister, something's happened. This time you have to save me." Concubine Zia, who had been anxious moments before, now unhurriedly walked to the table, sat down, and poured herself a cup of tea. Zia Jiang snatched her cup and said, "My dear auntie, you still have the mind to drink tea. It's an urgent matter. Your eldest young miss, I don't know what got into her, actually went to Zui Xianju yesterday and audited the accounts." Concubine Zia wiped the tea from her hand with a handkerchief and said, "I thought it was something major. Let her audit the accounts. Even her mother, Wei Shu, couldn't find any problems. I don't believe she can find anything." Zia Jiang saw that she still looked calm and immediately said loudly, "What do you mean she can't find anything? She audited the accounts clearly and even demanded that I hand over hundreds of thousands of jin of grain within 3 days." "What?" Concubine Zia instantly couldn't sit still and sprang to her feet. "How is that possible? How could that idiot have such ability?" Zia Jiang angrily said, "How is it impossible? Do you think I'd lie to you? I only managed to scrape together a little over 100,000 taels of silver. Quickly, give me another 400,000 taels." Concubine Zia shrieked, "400,000? Where would I get 400,000? I don't even have 40,000. Zia Jiang's face darkened. "Zia Qingzhai, you must have a conscience when you speak. The silver I've given you these past 2 years is more than 400,000. If you don't hand it over, do you want your madam to report to the authorities? Heh, even if I go to jail, you won't escape." Concubine Zia heard this and quickly softened her voice. "Brother, we're siblings. If I had the money, wouldn't I help you? Don't I just not have that much?" Zia Jiang's expression finally softened a bit, but he still said coldly, "If you don't want your brother-in-law to find out about those things you've done, then obediently hand over the money. I'm not black-hearted. If you don't have 400,000, surely you have 300,000. Think about it, if I go to jail, you'll lose your maternal family's support, and your parents will become a burden to you. Is that worth it?" Concubine Zia lowered her head, thought for a moment, then gritted her teeth and said, "I'll go back and scrape some together." Zia Jiang said, "Be quick. You must gather the money today. I still need to buy grain tomorrow and the day after." Concubine Zia impatiently said, "Understood, understood." Su Li informed Mother Su, then left the estate with Si Qin and Zhai Shu. Before leaving, Su Li used her sore knees as an excuse to keep Yuki in the estate, leaving Mo Hua to watch her. The carriage jolted along for a quarter of an hour. After 15 minutes, the carriage finally stopped. "Miss, we've arrived at the Duke's estate," the coachman's voice came. The 2 maids lifted the carriage curtain and alighted. They then carefully helped Su Li down. Su Li stood still after alighting and looked up. She saw the pink walls guarding the courtyard, green willows hanging all around, and a vermilion lacquered gate with a plaque bearing the inscription, "Duke Wei's estate." Maternal grandfather, maternal grandmother, maternal uncle, maternal aunt, and cousins. In my previous life, I was foolish, trusting treacherous people and causing your misery. I'm sorry. Just as her mind was filled with myriad thoughts, the gatekeeper's question interrupted her. "Who are you?" Zhai Shu stepped forward and said, "Are you new? You don't recognize young miss anymore." The gatekeeper was instantly surprised. "Oh, it turns out to be young miss. My apologies for my poor eyesight, young miss. Please forgive me." The Duke's daughter married out and only had one daughter. When young miss was mentioned, it naturally referred to the minister's daughter who had rarely appeared in the past year. Su Li smiled faintly. "Don't blame you. I haven't been to the Duke's estate for over a year." With that, she led her 2 maids through the gate. Just as they entered, they met the Duchess, who was hurrying towards them. "Is it Lear who has come?" Su Li's eyes welled up, and she hoarsely called out, "Maternal grandmother." She stepped forward and supported her white-haired maternal grandmother, her heart filled with self-reproach. In her previous life, from her disfigurement to her death, she had never once visited her maternal grandmother. Her maternal grandmother in front of her now looked older than in her memories. The Duchess tightly clasped Su Li's hand, her lips trembling slightly. "Lear, it's really my Lear." A daughter was a mother's heart and soul, and a granddaughter was even more so a grandmother's most cherished possession. "Your maternal grandmother has always wanted to see you, but unfortunately these legs of mine are useless. Walking just this little bit hurts like needles." The Duchess pounded her legs. Su Li quickly covered her hands, stopping her. "Maternal grandmother, Lear was too stubborn before. From now on, Lear will come to see you." Saying this, she and her maids helped her towards the main hall. As soon as they sat down, the maids served tea and pastries. The Duchess pushed the pastries towards her and said, "Lear, your maternal grandmother remembers you like pineapple cakes the most. Hurry and eat." Just as Su Li was about to speak, a hearty voice came. "I heard from the servants that Lear has arrived." As she spoke, a beautiful woman in her 30s entered the main hall, followed by a girl in blue. Su Li stood up, curtsied, and greeted, "Maternal aunt, cousin." Wang, she stepped forward and took her hand. "Good child, it's been a long time since you came. It's a pity your maternal grandfather and maternal uncle have gone to work. If they knew you were here, they'd be so happy." The blue-clad girl said coldly, "She doesn't even remember having a maternal family." Wang, she turned and glared at her daughter, scolding, "Yayar, how dare you speak like that? Quickly apologize to your cousin." Su Li chuckled, "Maternal aunt, don't be angry with cousin. She's right. Lear has truly been too unruly this past year." Then she looked at the blue-clad girl and said, "I know cousin misses me." Wei Yuaniao said coldly, "Pht, I don't miss you at all." When she went to her aunt's house, her cousin had people stop her at the courtyard gate, not letting her in to see her, but her illegitimate sister had walked in brazenly. Su Li stepped forward, took her hand, and shook it. "Good cousin, please forgive your younger sister. Your younger sister was also provoked by others and only recently came to her senses. If cousin is still angry, just hit me." With that, she took Wei Yuaniao's hand and swung it towards her own face. Wei Yuaniao was startled and quickly pulled her hand back. She said proudly, all right, you scare me. Why do you always wear a veil? Just a small scar and you've become a completely different person. You're simply not like Aunt's daughter." The Duke Wei's estate had served in the military for generations, and even their daughters carried a natural heroic spirit. Therefore, Wei Yuaniao couldn't stand to see her cousin so self-pitying and timid. Seeing her daughter speaking carelessly again, Wang, she scolded, "Yayar." The Duchess chuckled, all right. They're just playing. Why are you restraining her?" Wang, she nodded and said, "Mother is right, but Yayar is mischievous and Lear is so quiet. I'm afraid she'll be bullied." Su Li chuckled, "Maternal aunt, don't worry. Cousin won't bully me. She cherishes me too much to do that." In her previous life, she had been so cold to her, and in the end, caused her such an unbearable demise, yet her cousin still begged Su Yue to spare her at the last moment. Wei Yuaniao scoffed, "Who cherishes you, shameless." Chapter 9, Old Ailments. Seeing her granddaughter still wearing the veil, the Duchess of the State said, "Lear, there's no one else here. Take off the veil and let your grandmother see." She had heard that her granddaughter's face was ruined, but had never seen to what extent. Her heart ached deeply. Her Lear had been so beautiful. Although she was only 11 or 12 before, she had already grown into a graceful, delicate young woman. If she had reached the age of marriage, no doubt many suitors would have lined up at the gates of the minister's residence, eager to ask for her hand. Who would have thought something like this would happen? Seeing the Duchess and her aunt with sorrowful eyes filled with heartache, Su Li's heart warmed. Slowly, she removed the veil. "Hiss," Wei Yuaniao gasped in shock. She hadn't expected her cousin's scar to be so long, stretching from the corner of her right eye all the way down to her chin. Because Su Li's skin was fair and delicate, the scar appeared even more conspicuous and ugly, like a centipede crawling across her face. No wonder her cousin had been so upset. Su Li had once been a peerless beauty, and now she had turned into this. If it were her, she wouldn't want to face anyone either. The resentment in her heart had long been replaced by sympathy. "Cousin, is it true that the scar can't be removed?" Wei Yuaniao stepped forward, gently covering her hand, offering silent comfort. Wang Shi sighed. "Sigh, I've heard that your uncle invited the head physician of the Imperial Medical Bureau, but even he is powerless." Seeing the Duchess with tears in her eyes, Su Li quickly put the veil back on. She stepped forward, squatting in front of her and holding her hand, saying, "Grandmother, don't be sad. Over the past year, I haven't been idle in the manor. I've gone through my father's medical books and found a method to treat the face. In a month, the scar will be gone." The Duchess assumed this was just an excuse her granddaughter had made up to console her, not wanting her to feel sad. "Lear, although a woman's appearance is important, character and knowledge are more important than beauty. Even if my Lear loses her beauty, so what? I'll surely find you a good match." Su Li knew that her grandmother didn't believe she could heal her face, especially since even the head physician couldn't fix it. Su Li said, "Grandmother, I'm not lying to you. If you don't believe me, ask Mo Hua and the others. They saw me save someone with their own eyes." Mo Hua quickly stepped forward and said, "Old madam, it's true. Our young lady even saved a child on the street yesterday who had accidentally eaten golden grass." The Duchess' eyes lit up, but after a moment of thought, she became even more skeptical. If it were any other poison, it would be fine, but golden grass poison was incurable. The Duchess and Wang, she didn't believe it, but Wei Yuaniao did. "Grandmother, mother, cousin has always been clever. She wouldn't lie." Su Li looked at the Duchess and said, "Grandmother, weren't you saying that your legs hurt so much you couldn't even walk? I have a set of techniques that can ease your pain. With the help of some medicinal soup, you'll be able to walk briskly in less than half a month." The Duchess stroked her knee with a bitter smile. "Don't try to comfort me, old woman. This is a long-standing ailment." Su Li replied, "Let me try for you, grandmother. If I'm lying, you'll know soon enough." Seeing how confident she was, Wang she also persuaded, "Mother, why not let Lear give it a try? It might really help." Wei Yuaniao added, "Grandmother, trying it won't hurt." The Duchess saw that everyone was looking at her expectantly and relented. "Fine, try it then. Lear, don't feel burdened by this. This is a stubborn ailment, and if it doesn't work, it's no big deal." Su Li nodded and moved forward to roll up the Duchess, pants leg. The Duchess' leg condition was indeed serious. Her lower legs were covered with bulging veins and swollen blood vessels. Su Li applied gentle pressure, using her unique finger techniques. At first, the Duchess felt some pain, but gradually, she seemed to adjust and didn't feel pain anymore, even starting to feel a little comfortable. After a quarter of an hour, Su Li stopped and looked up. "Grandmother, do you feel any better? Is your calf warm?" The Duchess was surprised to find that her calf did indeed feel warm. The most surprising thing was that her feet had warmed up as well. Even in the summer heat, her feet had always been cold. Wang Shi and Wei Yuaniao looked on curiously. "This is amazing, it really works," the Duchess exclaimed. Wang Shi quickly stepped forward. "Lear, do it again. I want to learn it properly so I can give it to Mother." Wei Yuaniao squatted down too. "I want to learn as well." Seeing her daughter-in-law and the two young girls being so filial, the Duchess smiled with pleasure. Su Li did it again, explaining as she worked. Once the two of them had a good grasp of the technique, Su Li stood up. "After doing this a couple of times, you'll be familiar with it. Just do it several times a day. I'll prepare a prescription, and in less than half a month, grandmother's leg condition will improve." The Duchess was so happy that her face flushed with excitement. "This is wonderful. At first, I didn't believe that Lear could heal her face, but now I believe it." Wei Yuaniao smiled. "Once cousin heals her face, she'll definitely be a great beauty. The top 4 beauties in the capital won't even compare." They all believed her, as Wei Yuaniao's mother, Wei Shu, had been a famous beauty in the capital when she was young. Su Li smiled, wrote out a prescription, and handed it to a maid to fetch the medicine. The group chatted happily for a while before the maid came to announce that lunch was ready. "Lear, come. Today, Auntie specifically asked the kitchen to make all your favorite dishes, Wang Shi said with a smile. Thank you, Auntie. They all went to the dining hall together, washed their hands, and were about to eat. Just in time, Ziyan has arrived, a pleasant male voice called out. Su Li stiffened. She had said she would wait until the antidote was ready before meeting him, but they had run into each other so soon. Junmo, styled Ziyan. Chapter 10, The First Meeting. Greetings, Prince Jiang. Junmo smiled gently. No need for formalities. I happened to meet Yuanling when I was leaving the palace and took the opportunity to visit him to discuss a few matters. I hope I haven't caused too much inconvenience. Su Li stood at the back, peeking through the gap. Dressed in a moon-white brocade robe, with eyebrows neither too sharp nor too soft, his eyes sparkled like a gentle stream in spring, warm like a breeze. His lips curled slightly, making him seem even more gentle and noble. Su Li had always known that Junmo, both in appearance and capability, was the most outstanding of the princes. As if sensing her gaze, Junmo glanced over. Su Li quickly lowered her head. It was an instinct, the instinct of guilt. The others rose, and the Duchess of the State exchanged pleasantries with Junmo, urging her grandson to invite him to take a seat. Please take a seat, Prince Jiang. Yuanling, you should have sent someone to inform us earlier. This humble meal is no match for your high status, the Duchess of the State said. Junmo declined politely. There's no need for such formalities, old madam. Yuanling and I are friends. Treat me like a junior. I certainly cannot take the seat of honor. The Duchess of the State was about to insist, but she was interrupted by Wei Yuanling. Grandmother, no need to say more. Ziyan doesn't care about such things. It's not like he's never been here before. Lady Wang smiled and said, All right, everyone, please take your seats. The atmosphere in Tianqi was relatively open-minded, so there was no need for a strict separation of genders during such small gatherings. Little cousin, your Lear little cousin, Wei Yuanling exclaimed as he looked at Su Li in surprise. He hadn't noticed before, but now he saw the veiled woman standing behind the crowd. Those eyes were exactly like his aunt's. Su Li bowed politely and called out softly, Cousin. Junmo also glanced over, smiling, though the smile was tinged with a certain distance. Su Li lowered her head again. In some ways, Junmo reminded her of herself. Both of them wore masks. She used gentleness as a disguise, while he wore warmth and harmlessness as a facade. Wei Yuanling smiled. No wonder I've been seeing grandmother so cheerful today. It turns out you've arrived. Lady Wang laughed. Please take your seat. The Duchess of the State took the seat of honor, and the others seated themselves one by one. Su Li noticed that when Junmo sat down, he instinctively touched his knee. So his leg condition had become this serious. Su Li had scars on her face, so she wore a veil. She gracefully removed her veil, and the others breathed a sigh of relief. They had expected her to feel awkward because of Junmo's presence, but instead, she was so poised and graceful. The Duchess of the State silently nodded in approval. Even Junmo, usually calm and composed, showed some surprise in his eyes. After lunch, Wei Yuanling and Junmo went to the study to discuss business. Wei Yuaniao pulled Su Li aside. Lear, I just got a rare black orchid. It's precious. I remember you like orchids too. Come, let me show you in the garden. Su Li smiled faintly and nodded. The two walked hand in hand toward the garden, with several maidservants following behind them. Lear, look, isn't it beautiful? Wei Yuaniao pointed to a dark orchid, proudly showing it off. Su Li nodded. It's indeed lovely. Cousin, this flower is quite rare. Wei Yuaniao smiled. Yes, it was a gift from Empress Yun recently. Little cousin, come closer and smell it. It's very fragrant. Su Li frowned slightly. Empress Yun was Junmo's birth mother. Her family, the Jiang family, had once been a minor merchant family, but after Empress Yun entered the palace, they rose to become a powerful clan. Su Li looked at Wei Yuaniao, who was smiling brightly, and asked, Cousin, are you very close to Empress Yun? Could it be that this mother and son had their sights set on the Wei family's military power? Were they planning to use her cousin? Wei Yuaniao noticed her serious expression and shook her head. No, I wasn't close to Empress Yun before. I don't even know why she's suddenly taken an interest in me. She said I resemble her niece, and because she's homesick, she sometimes calls me to talk. The Jiang family had been from Shaju, originally just a wealthy merchant family. After Jiang Yun entered the palace, they gradually rose to prominence. Su Li furrowed her brow. Didn't grandfather or uncle say anything about this? She remembered that her grandfather and uncle were particularly wary of them, getting involved with the royal family. Now that the current emperor was elderly and the crown prince's health was worsening, the political landscape was becoming even more treacherous. The Wei family didn't involve itself in court struggles. They simply pledged allegiance to whoever sat on the throne, remaining loyal ministers. Wei Yuaniao nodded. They did mention it. They said Empress Yun summoned me on imperial orders and that I must be cautious around the sixth prince. Su Li nodded. Grandfather and uncle are right. Wei Yuaniao had a straightforward personality. She would never survive in the palace, with its constant intrigue. Suddenly, Wei Yuaniao furrowed her brows. Lear, I remember you always had clever ideas when you were little. Help me think of a way. Mother's been pushing me to meet suitors lately, and it's driving me crazy. Su Li looked at her cousin's face, which was scrunched up in frustration, and smiled. Cousin, what's the worry? A man must marry when he's of age, and a woman must marry when the time comes. Maybe your future husband will be a dashing young man. Her aunt's haste in arranging matches likely came from her fear that the palace would take an interest in Wei Yuaniao. Su Li recalled that in her previous life, she'd heard her mother mention that Wei Yuaniao had been engaged once. But just before the wedding, the groom's family suffered a death, so he had to observe mourning for 3 years. Had it not been for that, maybe her cousin wouldn't have. Thinking about the words Su Yue had said to her before her death, Su Li clenched her fists. Little cousin, what's wrong? Su Li snapped out of her thoughts and replied gently, It's nothing. Cousin, just go along with Aunt's wishes and meet the suitors. You don't have to marry right away. It's up to you to decide. Aunt won't force you, so don't worry. Wei Yuaniao thought about it and agreed. She could always reject them if she didn't like anyone. If she turned down enough suitors, her mother would eventually stop pushing. Leaving behind the troubling thoughts, Wei Yuaniao looked at the flowers in the garden and felt they had grown 3 times more beautiful. Looking at Su Li, who stood among the flowers, her graceful figure and almond-shaped eyes revealed through her veil, Wei Yuaniao couldn't help but exclaim, Little cousin, you're truly beautiful. As soon as the words left her mouth, she realized it might have been inappropriate. Sorry, little cousin, but I meant it sincerely. Your face will definitely heal. You've already helped grandmother with her leg condition. A little scar like that should be nothing. Su Li suddenly raised her voice. Yes, I'm quite skilled in treating leg conditions. For example, frostbite or injuries from a fall have a very high chance of recovery. Wei Yuaniao looked at her curiously, wondering why Su Li had suddenly spoken so loudly. Then, from behind, the voice of Wei Yuanling could be heard. Little cousin can treat leg injuries. Is that true? His voice was filled with both urgency and joy. Wei Yuaniao patted her chest, startled. Brother, you scared me. Lear really can treat medical conditions. For grandmother's severe leg ailment, after Lear applied some pressure, grandmother felt much better. Wei Yuanling turned to Junmo behind him, excitedly saying, Ziyan. Junmo subtly shook his head, signaling for him to stay silent. Wei Yuanling immediately quieted down. Su Li understood that he was highly cautious and would never easily trust others, nor would he expose his weaknesses without hesitation. Important note: for the continuity of this story, consider to support us on Patreon. com/flockixy to access +200 advanced chapters and to support the daily update.